Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a truly fascinating source text that presents us with this absolutely striking contrast. We're going to explore a brilliant literary diptych, the Taxidermy of Thursdays and Municipium. At their core, both of these narratives are about exactly the same thing: archives. We're going to look at how humanity uses records to either beautifully preserve the fleeting reality of our existence, or, well, how we use documentation to trap ourselves inside these absurd, inescapable labyrinths. Okay, let's dive right into this. On the one side, we have Verbinka. This is a town literally founded by people who were going somewhere else and simply stopped. It's completely defined by this honest, halted momentum. And then on the other side, we have Municipium, just a choking, Kafkaesque administrative nightmare defined by an endless, perpetual state of audit. Both places are entirely shaped by what they record, but man, the way they go about recording their realities couldn't be more vastly opposed. Section 1. Verbinka, the living record and the artistry of dying. Here, we meet a woman named Irina Vassilyevna. You see, for 11 years, Irina has been dying. And she's been doing it with considerable artistry. She'd essentially made a masterpiece of her own ending. Until one Thursday morning, right before the light, the apricots fall in her garden, and she simply decides to stop. The destination she thought she was heading toward was suddenly no longer the destination. Now, her change of heart is actually inspired by a local taxidermist named Benedict O'Rell. Benedict works with this intense philosophical precision, but he completely insists he isn't preserving anything. Instead, he calls it proposing. He takes a stopped thing, like a bird, and he holds it in a state of permanent proposition. He's actively arguing to the universe that the animal was. It's not a denial of death. It's this ongoing, physical argument for the life that actually happened. Now, what's really interesting here is this exact realization Irina has. She looks at a tiny 3-gram taxidermy hummingbird, and it just hits her. She had been confusing completion with cessation. The bird's flight ceased, sure, but its existence wasn't completed. It was just awaiting its next response. And this tiny 3-gram argument against the mundane makes Irina realize that her own life isn't finished either. It's just waiting to be proposed again. Section 2. Municipium. The bureaucratic trap where momentum goes to die. Because now we pivot and meet Voss, a man who desperately needs a certificate of continuous residency just so he can prove he actually lives in the very district he was born in. But instead, he gets caught in this frantic, choking, absolutely endless loop of administrative failure, all because he missed one single form 15 years ago that he didn't even know existed. I mean, just look at the impossible circular loop Voss is trapped in. To get his residency reclassified, he needs the certificate. But oh wait, the requirement's just updated. So now to even apply for the certificate, he needs a preliminary screening form. But guess what? To be eligible to even download that preliminary screening form, you have to provide, the certificate of continuous residency. He literally needs the exact thing he is applying for in order to ask permission to apply for the thing he's applying for. You can't make this stuff up. And honestly, if that wasn't enough, he also has to submit a photograph with a heritage gray background. But as the text hilariously points out, heritage gray is a color that literally does not exist in any commercial paint or photographic backdrop. It exists solely as a standard of satisfaction in the mind of the reviewing officer, which means, by definition, nobody has ever successfully produced a heritage gray background. It's a requirement designed entirely around its own impossibility. So the crucial point is how these two vastly different worlds are maintained. Let's look at Section 3. The keepers of the record, and maintaining the archive. Because at the end of the day, an archive is really only as good, or as terrifying, as the people who keep it. And this brilliantly illustrates the difference between the people behind these archives. On the one hand, we have the naturalist Nikolai Sev from Verbinka, a man who's spent 60 years simply watching and documenting the world with profound love, eventually dying peacefully right under a tree he tracked since he was a child. On the other hand, we have M. Dravit, a bureaucrat in Municipium who has sat at the exact same desk for 31 years, just mechanically denying unapprovable forms for a residency office that doesn't currently even have the legal authority to issue certificates in the first place. Let's just slow down for a second and look at what Nikolai Sev actually left behind. 63 beautiful handwritten naturalist notebooks. Irina takes on the task of simply sitting in the same room with them. These notebooks contain records of a single fox watched for over 4 years, the changing feathers of a hen harrier. In Verbinka, deep, unhurried observation is presented as the ultimate form of love, its documentation as an act of profound care. But over in Municipium, the defining number is 1923, because 1923 is the year the Municipal Audit Commission began a review of the city's administrative foundations. And guess when it finished? Never. It's a never-ending audit that literally pauses reality. And because of this century-long audit, offices can't issue certificates. But bureaucrats like M. Droft still force people to file paperwork for the suspended certificates anyway. Which brings us to the wonderfully resilient Ulla Feld. Ulla is a woman waiting in the exact same anteroom as Voss. She's been trying to get her certificate for over 6 years. And her coping mechanism? It's brilliant. She treats her bureaucratic doom as a complex research project. She keeps a spreadsheet tracking her own misery. 11 requirement changes, 7 contradictory rules, 4 totally pointless officer visits. She is documenting the absurdity literally just to survive it. When you really look at Ulla's spreadsheet, you realize something incredibly grim about the text. The problem with Municipium isn't active corruption. Corruption would imply some sort of human intention you could actually fight. No, Municipium is paralyzed by a geological sediment of old rules outliving their makers. The world is just filling up with the decisions of the dead, slowly choking the living out of existence. Let's move to section 4 and see how this builds into our final takeaway, the meaning of documentation, and why do we keep records? Because through these two contrasting cities, the text is fundamentally asking us to evaluate exactly that. Why do we bother writing things down in the first place? There is this absolutely beautiful realization in the final notebook of Nikolai Sev. He writes, "I suspect that attention, sustained over sufficient time, becomes reciprocal, that the watcher is eventually watched, that the record, if kept faithfully enough, begins at some point to keep you." By faithfully recording the beauty of Verbinka, Nikolai Sev found that the world held on to him in return. To summarize this core duality, we really have 2 choices. We can be like Verbinka, making honest records to propose that we existed, that we paid attention, that we love the world enough to watch it closely. Or we can be like Municipium, just making endless, suffocating rules that trap us, distance us from reality, and ultimately prevent us from actually living at all. So I want to leave you with this provocative thought to carry with you today. Take a look at your own life, your own records, your own routines. Are you an active, living record of your own journey, proposing boldly to the universe that you are here? Or have you let the paperwork and the rules take over, leaving you passively waiting in a self-made anteroom? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I absolutely can't wait to dive into our next topic with you.